And welcome back, everyone, to Brain Swap.
Brain swap.
Our appearances have changed slightly.
Hmm.
We are suddenly anime schoolgirls,
Yes.
as you may have noticed.
Yes. Woo. Yes.
Wee.
Yes. Woo.
We
Yes.
love food. We love food.
Woo.
So we are talking today about food in anime.
Food in anime.
Yep, that's our topic.
Two of my favorite things.
Hey, imagine
Eating
that.
and anime.
Right. So we're talking about both anime that involves food directly, and we'll be talking about how food is represented in anime in general. Right? Because, like with so many things about culture, this is something that pops up a lot in anime. You know, you see sushi being eaten, and rice balls, Pocky, definitely. yeah, definitely various candies. In fact, I would venture to say that Pocky or Poki, as it's pronounced over in Japan, might be the first thing people come across when it comes to food and anime. What do you think?
It's a good snack food. I've seen something similar with Korean snack foods. Different names, same thing. But it's a common thing to see.
Yeah.
Although I might think that there's also a ramen that's probably seen quite frequently. Naruto's always slurping the ramen.
Sure.
And I've seen that a bit.
Certainly rice balls.
Yeah, rice balls.
A lot.
Onigiri.
Yep.
And bento.
Bento, certainly. Yeah, which, for those who don't know, are Japanese school lunches, essentially, little packaged lunches, lunch boxes. Those certainly pop up a lot. Sushi, probably not quite as much. I mean, sushi appears, but it's
a specialty food there. It's not like everyday common food. Like,
right. I mean, it's common food in the same way that, say, Italian is a food. You know, it's like you'd eat it, but you're not eating it every day.
It's like a special event type of food.
Certainly. Well, I don't know.
Not an event, but like
because it is kind of a snack.
It's not the main
food,
staple.
But it's not it's not the everyday food. I guess. Yeah,
going for sushi.
So yeah, you certainly see that, and as a result, anime often incorporates food into storylines or into particular moments in anime. You know, notably, for example, in Evangelion. And the final scenes of Evangelion, those who are familiar with it, and I won't spoil anything.
Who stuck out to the end?
You know, there's a scene with Rey running down the street with a toast coming out of her mouth. You know, and that's kind of a very iconic moment. And so you have food, and of course, Misato and her beer.
Yebasu, and her cup of noodles.
Yeah,
her instant noodles.
And that's an interesting point, actually. Glad you brought that up, because when we see Misato, we see her apartment. I think the average American thinks that, and they see, okay, food. That's like a strong signal over there. You know, if you just got instant ramen and beer,
you're not really eating. Right. You're eating junk food.
Yeah.
Who's cooking your lunches for you?
Welcome to the NHK, another good example of that, where all the food he has around is junk food.
Junk food.
It's nothing
Convenience
good.
Food, not well prepared by somebody with care and concern for your health and diet.
And that's where the plot comes in. So often, having food prepared for you by somebody who cares about you becomes a plot point.
It does.
The
bento box made specially for so and so. Oh, she made my lunch for me.
Which leads to probably the one big stereotype about food in anime: the comically bad cook.
Oh yes. Oh, that's
so the girl who literally can't boil water. Examples including, I believe, Akane and Ranma 1/2.
Oh, Akane, yeah.
Was a classic one there. Trying to think of some of the others.
High School Rumble, I think, had somebody who was... What was the one where someone was trying to make a chocolate cake and they just could not make a chocolate cake for anything? Oh,
I remember that one. Yeah. So yeah, that certainly crops up, all the time in such. Toradora, folks mentioning about stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of of anime out there. Sorry, looking up at the chat room here. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Yeah, Masato, known for her bad cooking skills, another good example. But yeah, so there's this stereotype in Japan. Perhaps stereotype isn't the perfect word. That a girl should know how to cook. So there's this thing that as
a good wife.
Yep.
And
the
stereotypes.
And there is something fundamental to being a girl in knowing how to cook well. And this is something that's been kind of challenged, if you will, in anime over time. It's something that's been a common thing. It's one of the reasons for the comically bad cooking thing in anime. That it's kind of making fun of this stereotype.
The stereotype that you have to be a good cook to be a good wife.
Right. You have the girl that everyone's kind of rooting for who can't cook. It's kind of implying something.
Able to do it.
It's sending this interesting mixed message that on the one hand, it's implying perhaps that she might not be a good choice, but also if the show is pushing her forward as the obvious choice, it's also that is in itself implying that being a good cook isn't the most important thing.
It's a variable, but that's not the main one. This girl has what it takes.
Yeah, exactly. So that's certainly an interesting sort of plot point in anime. Another thing another element of this is anime that's based on food. So you've got some examples there would include, well, obviously Yumera Patisserie. That's certainly one of the big ones, which is all about a patisserie, a girl who wants to become a patisserie, which, as you know,
pastry.
Exactly. It's a young girl becoming a pastry chef, which is really neat.
I work in a pastry shop. Oh, I've got to do that. What was the spoof with not Yamada. Oh, it's
Watamote?
Watamote.
Another
ideal pastry shop.
Another example would be Bonjour Koyaji Patisserie, which is sort of a boys' version of Yumera Patisserie, which is a lot of fun. So sort of a a lot of cute boys version of that. One of our favorites around here, a ramen fighter Miki.
Yes.
Which is
she can deliver.
Yes, which is a sort of parody of this. It's a girl who lives on a shopping arcade street, and her family makes food, and she delivers it, and then it turns into sort of a martial arts combat amongst the various folks who deliver food in the shopping arcade. So it's this it's a very cute, very fun, ridiculous show. One a lot of folks haven't heard of, in fact, I didn't hear of until I started researching this, is a show called Jangum's Dream. You can probably pronounce this better than I can. How would you pronounce that one?
Jangum.
Jangum. All right. It's a Korean animated series. Came out about 10 years ago. It's about a girl who has a passion for cooking.
Ooh.
And she wants to become the palace chef. And she is basically, working hard to be a better chef day by day. What's neat is you get to see the Korean take on cooking, which is a little different.
And it's kind of funny when I believe when the Chinese invaded Korea, they took the chefs back for the emperor. So
interesting.
One of the notable things about Korea.
Absolutely.
Okonomiyaki from I think it was also Ranma.
Okay.
But you see it in other shows also. The pancake kind of pizza, the pizza of I believe it was Osaka.
Okay.
Osaka. It's sort of Japanese pizza, they call it.
Huh.
It's not a pizza, it's its own sort of thing, but
cool.
They every now and then I saw it in Rama, and now I'm more sensitive to it when I see it other places. Oh, they're referring to that.
Cool. so there's definitely that. There's also cooking papa. This is another one that folks aren't as familiar with. This is an older series, began in 1992. The anime, but the manga's been around for decades. It's about a guy who cooks, quite literally, big manly, guy who is kind of this genius cook, but he never really takes credit for it. He just kind of lets others enjoy that. And it's kind of an interesting thing, mainly because very popular in Japan, very well known in Japan. And rumor has it, I believe, that Iron Chef was inspired by this show.
Wow.
Yeah. It's about a guy kind of dealing with cooking problems all the time.
Fiction, inspiring life,
Yes.
inspiring fiction.
Exactly. So there's that. And then Ristorante Paradiso. A lot of folks like that one.
Just picked it up. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet.
There we go. So this is about a bunch of employees at a restaurant, a high-end Italian restaurant. It's got a lot of pretty boys in it. So there's a hint. That's what's kind of what the direction of that there is. I haven't actually seen Ristorante Paradiso, but it's been highly recommended. One I have seen some of, and it's sadly obscure, is Bartender.
I was trying to hunt that down.
Yeah, it's very hard to find. It's become quite rare. It's about a bartender, and one of the ideas is that it's about how the right drink can put you in just the right mood.
It's amazing how that can happen.
Mm-hmm.
Just the right flavor, the right mixture, the right ambiance. Everything adds to the chemistry of what's shaken together. Too sweet, too bitter, throws everything off. But the right drink at the right time, the right people.
And the premise is that the bartender, by learning about the person and learning what they're going through and learning what the problem is, can mix just the right drink.
I've got one for you.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So the neat thing about the show is it's kind of that sort of daily drama, that almost sort of Twilight Zone style, episodic drama, although there's no fantasy.
When was Bartender? Because it's been
2006.
So hard 2006. I'd think it'd be easier to find, but
I don't think it was licensed.
Hard to hunt.
Yeah, I don't think so. That's a tough one. Then you have Bento. A lot of folks love this one. It's about a guy who discovers that there are people who fight over half-price bento boxes. And that there's this serious competition amongst, I believe, girls in his school. I haven't actually seen it. To get these half-price bento boxes. So it turns into this sort of shonen-y fight thing around cheap bento. It's kind of a fun one there.
Fight over food.
Exactly. Totally. Now, Moyashimon is an anime series a lot of folks have heard of by now because it's an anime about bacteria. The main character can literally see and interact with bacteria.
Whoa.
And so it's about kind of the science of that.
That's pretty wild. Is that a sci-fi?
No, fantasy.
Fantasy.
And because bacteria is such a part of food and so important in so many things like cheese and wine and such, that it food becomes a central part of Moyashimon, or an important part of Moyashimon, for example. It certainly pops up a lot in there. It would be difficult for us to not mention Toriko, because Toriko is an anime series that is literally about chasing down ingredients in major dishes. So Toriko is
that can be hard.
Yes.
He's everything but that one ingredient.
He's what's called a food investigator, who's basically a monster hunter in his world because all the monsters are ingredients in amazing dishes. So he's trying to find all the most unique ingredients around the world and trying to get these to make these amazing dishes.
Is that what makes a good dish? The right monster.
Yeah, that's the idea. I couldn't possibly comment, but that is kind of the idea. So if you're looking for a more shonen-y, Dragon Ball Z, One Piece-y kind of show, Toriko is that. A big fan favorite is Yakitate Japan, or freshly baked Japan. Pan being Japanese for bread, so it's kind of a pun there.
A pun.
Exactly. And it's about a guy who wants to make bread, and he has these hands. He has this power called solar hands.
Solar hands.
Where his bread his hands have just the right temperature for cooking bread.
To cook the bread.
So he doesn't literally cook the bread with his hands, but when you're kneading dough, it needs to be a certain temperature. And so he can, just with his hands, quick to make the fermenting process go a certain speed and kind of affect
the perfect hands for bread making.
Exactly. So he pursues bread making in that. It's neat because bread making's been around for a long time in Japan, but it's not what we think of as traditional Japanese food.
Yeah, I always think of the traditional rice as starch or sugar. So bread is sort of an unusual twist to that.
Yeah, and they certainly have bread all the time, and pan is a big thing. Melon pan is a famous treat in Japan. So it's a really fun
melon
show.
Bread.
Oh yes, melon pan. Oh,
what was the name of that show again?
Yakitate, Japan.
Yakitate, Japan. I'm gonna hunt that.
It's shonen in the sense of being a sort of cooking competition show, a cooking contest show, but there's no like punching or kicking or anything like that. So that's a fun one. Then of course there's Food Wars.
Food Wars.
So Food Wars is probably the best known of all of these in terms recently, and it's about a guy who goes to an academy, the Totsuki Culinary Academy, and so it's basically a guy at a culinary academy trying to be top of his class and learn how to be a great student chef. So cooking challenges, competitive spirit, Iron Chef style concept there, and there's a lot of what they call fan service foodgasms.
Foodgasm, exactly. So delicious.
So they will show the characters eating food in this just sort of blissful way, and they'll
foie gras.
You'll see them scooping things out of things, all this detail around eating and consuming food, as it should be. I mean, if you're going to do that for all sorts of stuff, you might as well really go nuts with it. That's a fun one.
All in good taste.
All in good taste. Exactly. That is the idea there. So those are definitely all shows involving that. I had one other thing here that I was looking for.
I remember a show that started out that I thought was going to be more food oriented, but it wasn't necessarily. Burst Angel, I think, had a character who was in school to be a chef, but then he gets kind of commandeered to become sort of like the another part of a team of girls who kick butt.
Okay.
Take names later.
Gotcha. Not familiar with the Gashi Kashi. The other quote is about different snacks. That's interesting.
Gashi Kashi.
Not familiar with that one. That's pretty cool. You're talking about the social eating trend on Twitch. I'm not familiar with that game Escape. Can you explain what social eating on Twitch is? That's interesting.
Social eating.
Hadn't heard of that.
Twitch, the social network.
Or the video streaming. No, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
So here's the other one I wanted to mention. Cooking Master Boy, aka Chuka Ichiban, which is interesting because it's set in I think it's pronounced the Qing Dynasty in 19th century China. So it's
China.
Older,
and so they're using the
stuff.
Some of the outfits that are more
exactly
Chinese in appearance.
Totally. I believe it's from the 90s. Certainly looks like the 90s. And it's a more lighthearted show.
The way she grabs his face.
But being one of those 90s shows, when I understand it's there's some plot there. There's some stuff that kind of develops over the course of time. So that would be a kind of interesting one to develop. It's one of the neat things, you get a lot of these food shows that it's not just about food, it's about some other aspect of it.
I'm always amused at the character who gets a bento box made for him and he eats it despite how bad it is because the girl he loves, or or the contrast between the rich and the poor person, or somebody who they expect would have some ornate food bento. Actually, the bento box has become an art form.
Yeah,
people will go all out and make characters and scenes, and it's just unbelievable. If you search some of the images that actually people have really made, it's not just in anime, but they've gone all out and making scenery and mountains and characters and unbelievable things that they do with foods, and they all fit into these small boxes. And it was funny seeing how some characters were thought to supposedly have elaborate lunches, and they have the basic rice, pickled plum. That's it. Or vice versa. They're expecting this person can't cook for themselves, and they've got something that's incredible. Of course, find out their mom or somebody else made it for them, or they get up at 4 in the morning and make their lunches and still have time to finish all their classwork and everything else. But what are some of the foods that you've noticed that just sort of caught your eye and you said, I'd like to try that sometime?
Well, I mean, pretty much the ones that we listed so far.
I wish I could try that melon bread.
Oh, delicious. Fantastic. And fortunately, a lot of these things are available over here now. We can get pokey. I believe that, there's probably melon pon somewhere. But yeah, there's, I don't know, maybe okonomiyaki.
Okonomiyaki, yeah.
Just because it's so not what we normally have over here.
I always look at those like star-shaped radishes that are in ramen, and I think I actually saw one. And
oh yeah,
they really exist. It's not just anime shorthand.
No, definitely. Actually, something came to mind. I mean, ramen certainly is one, which I have had a chance to have that. Oh, thank you for reminding me of that, Master Chief Snake.
And ramen, real ramen is not the same as instant cup of noodles ramen.
Yeah.
It's ramen. It's a meal. It's much better.
It's a proper restaurant soup with a number of ingredients that are very carefully balanced. If you want to learn more about that, there is a live-action movie called Sampopo, which is a movie about a ramen stand. I think maybe an udon stand in Japan, and it's initially structured kind of like a spaghetti western. So it's really interesting. It's a really fun movie. Now, Master Chief Snake brings up something here, which is worth pointing out. Code Geass famously has Pizza Hut pizza in the show. Characters eat pizza from Pizza Hut, and there was also art, like official like new type art of them eating Pizza Hut pizza.
And we can't leave out Kentucky Fried Chicken at Christmas.
Well, before we go to that, why do you think there is Pizza Hut pizza in Code Geass?
Product placement? Could it be a support?
Well, I mean, it was a product placement. Yeah, it was a paid advertisement inserted into the show. And they've done this a couple of different times with a couple of different shows, but this was certainly one of the more blatant and more obvious ones in anime. And it's again one of the ways in which you can, finance your show is get a company.
Yeah, if it's not, too beating you over the head with it, I could deal with a little product placement to get good anime.
Sure, exactly.
They get some benefit, and I mean, it's a real place that people eat. As long as they're not telling me to eat there every meal and bugging me every few seconds with it.
Yeah, it's also funny seeing sort of censored products in anime to that point. So you'll see people eating, Rocky
instead of Pocky,
right? Or going to McDonald's. In Azumanga Daioh, isn't there a McDonald's that they work at? Something like that.
I think so. Yeah. Just changed enough to keep the copyright from causing a problem. It's the golden W, not the golden.
Yeah, exactly.
Other one.
So yeah, they do that, and it's a way of introducing things that are common. We should probably bring this up. Actually, is this question of how accurate is anime in terms of its representations of these things? I think a lot of people see, for example, McDonald's or whatever, an anime series, and think, what? Like, are they just throwing in an American cultural
just
reference?
For me? Right? No. McDonald's has spread far and wide.
Exactly. Can you think of an anime where they're not representing food accurately? I mean, other than like the fantasy shows and the over the top stuff, but I can't think of a show where things aren't like the way they are in the show.
Yeah, I try and think of when they're out camping and somebody gets a fish on a stick, but people do that. So it's hard to remember one that doesn't really follow. I mean, I've seen people with the noodles hanging out of their mouth, slurping them in. So that's kind of accurate too.
Oh, definitely.
So, the way it's cooked, I think, can be exaggerated.
Yeah,
and
sure.
You know, wah, 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 wah. Although some people get to where they can put things together if they have all the ingredients, they're familiar with the kitchen, they can do things really quickly because they know where it is and they can go to it, and it'll make somebody who barely ever does it look slow and awkward and wonder how they could possibly get this all together. So yeah, it's hard to think of an anime where it hasn't really gone pretty much like it is in real life.
Yeah, I think it's pretty accurate.
Maybe the quantities when people stuff their face.
Yeah. Well, even there, I mean, I've watched Japanese people, eat a soup of ramen in like 3 minutes. It's just down it goes.
Stack of bowls. 11 bowls more.
Yeah, and obviously, anime exaggerates, but we're talking about just the general sort of frequency of
the eating contest in Samurai Champloo.
Yeah, that's a bit over the top, but
it's funny how a lot of heroes. I think somebody else mentioned earlier in the chat room how the characters quite often never have enough to eat. Like Bebop and Samurai Champloo. They're always like. And some of the others I've seen there.
Like, well, and
food.
And a lot of that goes back, I think, to the pre-war era when there wasn't enough food. That was a sort of a common concern among folks.
Couldn't have anything to do with the big paycheck that these animators get, could it? Or the lack of big paycheck that they get. They're probably.
Oh, I don't think so. No, I don't think they're starving to that level. No, I think that lack of food was a big news story, if you will. It was a common thing. In fact, the reason that Japanese public schools have school lunches was because kids weren't getting fed at home.
Good nutrition for society.
Right. And it was there's other things going on as well. But it was literally about making sure kids got enough food. So, and this is post-war. So yeah, there's a I think that sort of stays in the national psyche for a while. That idea that, that it could happen.
And it's funny, like Shirobako, we see one of the characters there taking sort of a motherly approach and cooking food all the time for everybody, and big pots of come and join and food. So yeah, I can see, and of course he's one of the older characters. The younger ones don't have as much of a bent towards that. Yeah.
Now, Kaminoko points out in the chat room that some of the most common home cooked meals aren't things always seen in anime, and that's and it's certainly true. But there are kind of two elements of that. One is that it's kind of like portrayals of spaghetti and meatballs in American culture. We don't see on television
because we've all seen it that many times already.
And those mundane meals just don't make for interesting television.
Peanut butter and jelly. Not again, Ma. And
also, anime tends to be about teenagers who are not at home eating home cooked meals. Their parents have somehow disappeared.
Hamburguesa.
So they are, grabbing ramen, they're grabbing school lunches, things like that. So anime has kind of structured it so that those common meals don't show up. But then the other side of that coin too is that, from what I understand, and I'm certainly not an expert on this, those home cooked meals are getting more rare. The folks aren't cooking at home as much as they used to.
One food that I've seen kind of lampooned is a food called natto. And there seem to be two camps of thought on it. It's edible, it's disgusting. And they kind of take both of those in anime. You're eating that? And they're like, ugh. And it's an interesting thing if you ever get a chance to take a look at. Very gooey, mucilaginous bean. It's like, what is it? Is it soybean? I don't remember. Natto. Help me out, Kaminoko.
Yeah.
What is it? It's very, very stringy, gooeyest food I think I've.
Oh, gotcha. Wow.
But it's good.
Yeah.
Although some people may not agree with the smell.
Yeah, I'm not as familiar with food stereotypes, Liquidus. I don't see in anime American characters chowing down on burgers and drinking Coke all the time. You know, when I see American characters, they're usually eating what everyone else is eating. I just can't think of that specifically. But yeah, I can't think of anything.
Soybean, thank you.
Sorry. You do see stuff a lot about regional cooking in Japan. So Osaka cooking and Kyoto cooking, and
from here, from there,
cooking from there, and that's where it gets complicated. That's where it gets into, you know, you have to dig into those cultures to know what they're talking about or to really appreciate it. It's kind of like, you know, over here, Southern cooking versus Midwestern cooking versus Southwestern cuisine. You know, over there, they're going to assume that you know what they mean when they say Osaka cooking. Just like over here, we say Southwestern. Oh, well, right.
Yeah. Tex-Mex. Yeah.
Right. It's kind of tough to
barbecue. Which kind?
Exactly. So so that's food and anime.
Let's all go out to eat. Okay, everybody, join us. We'll all go out to that would be fun.
So I hope you will all join us next week when we'll be talking about a somewhat more controversial topic, Christianity in anime. So we'll be talking about how Christianity is often portrayed in anime. We're talking about when anime kind of gets it wrong. And by that we mean that just, you know, any religion is rarely presented in you know, correctly in any entertainment medium. Yeah. So we'll see kind of what generally tends to get sort of glossed over or whatever in anime. And so we'll talk about that. And also some anime that includes Christianity in interesting ways, because it's a religion that a lot of us over here are familiar with. It's interesting seeing how that is handled in anime. So that'll be for us next week. So thank you all very much for joining us this week. It's been a lot of fun. Please hang around in the chat room. We're going to try doing an after party. We're not going to be doing quite what we imagined. We had some technical difficulties, but we're going to hang around for a little while. So hang out in the chat room for a little bit, and hopefully we will see you in the after party then. Thank you all very much for joining us. We will see you soon.